Hello, everybody. How y'all doing today? Since the last few days, bad day, gonna do my best, keeping good spirits. That's how you always have to live, right? Every day is a choice. You can choose to have a good day, you can choose to have a bad day. I always choose to try to have a good day as much as possible. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna let the people on Flick know that I am live. And then I am going to start talking about the main slate today, or take any questions if anybody has any questions. You know how it works by now. Give me 1 second here, folks. All right, there we go. How's everybody doing today? So we got a couple games going. I'm sorry I missed the morning slate. If you saw my tweet, I had to go out and get medicine. This morning, I didn't realize that I was on my last bit yesterday. I thought I had one more that would get me through today, and unfortunately I didn't. So I had to go out, and that is never a pleasant thing because driving with the bad leg is unpleasant, to say the least. But that is of no concern to you, although I appreciate it. Hey, Aaron, not great today, but, getting by. Good enough to be here. You're right. You know how it is. Can't stop it, no matter what. Every day is another chance to keep fighting. And that's what I'm going to do every day, no matter what. So let us look at the main slate today. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. No, that can't be right. Oh, okay. I hate when they do that. Let me just do it the old-fashioned way and just go to the lobby of DraftKings and then go to the 10 games. Okay, that's not bad. 10 games isn't bad at all. So we'll have a nice size slate today. I looked over everything. I just didn't count it up. I know we have a lot of really nice pitchers and a lot of not so nice stacks. So it's going to be a little more cut and dry, I think, today when it comes to batters. Thanks, Aaron. I appreciate that. I really do. I try to not let it show. You know what I mean? Like when the injury first happened and it started getting to like the constant neurological pain part of it, I was really like, I couldn't stop showing it. You know what I mean? And that really upset my wife a lot, for good reason. She doesn't want to see me like that. So I learned to kind of try to push it back and, just deal with the pain internally and not try to show it outwards. So I try to do that. Sometimes I get those spasms, and you'll see them from time to time that I can't help, that you will hear me scream. And I do apologize if I deafen anybody at any point in the future. But that is just unfortunately the way it works for me. So to get back to the slate at hand, it is a nice slate. I really do like this one a lot. Like I said yesterday, I think this is going to be replete. Did I put the right date in? Did I put the 22nd? I hope I put the 22nd. Nope, I didn't. Oh. Oh, stupid me not knowing what date it is either. Well, that'll hurt. Oh, well. Yeah, I only have 2 people. Okay. There you go. Oh, well. Let's just get going anyway. People can go back and watch it. So let's start with my first game here, which is going to be the Rockies and the Phillies. You know what? The first thing I want to see is the late St. Louis game on here. It is not. So we don't have to worry about that late St. Louis game. That was actually significant for me. So that's easier now. So let's start Colorado-Pittsburgh. We have John Gray, and then Pittsburgh going with like an opener situation here. They have Montana Durapau going, and then he should be followed by Nick Kingham, all things being equal. If you look at the pitchers over the last couple weeks, which if you've watched my videos, you know that's basically what I do. I like to look at recent form and go over that with you because that's a decent indication. I can also talk about the season-long form, and it's easier to pick that up because that's where the stats are. If you look at all the stats that are everywhere, but a lot of people don't talk about how people are looking over their last couple starts, which does inform how they're going to pitch this time. Not 100%, but it does give some indication that they may not be going right or may not be feeling right. But there's a lot that can be gleaned from recent form. So taking a look, we have Montana Durapel, who is the best in terms of FIP over the last couple of weeks, but he's an opener, so it's irrelevant. And it doesn't matter if he's fantastic and getting some strikeouts. He's not going to pitch long enough to justify him on this slate. Maybe if it were like a 4-game slate, if we were like pitching on the morning slate, then maybe we can consider him if he was the stone minimum, but not on today. That's just insane. And then Kingham. Is Kingham still projected to get the long? Yeah. Kingham, 7.8 strikeouts per 9. Not great. Walking 4.5 per 9. Terrible. 2.13 whip. Awful. A 10.13 ERA, which is somewhat offset by a much better 6.08 FIP and a 5.88 xFIP. So the point there is that the Pirates are going to have some of the bad pitching today. So while I said there are not going to be a lot of great stacks, and the Rockies aren't a great stack today, they are certainly one of the stacks to keep in mind. If you are playing multiple lineups, it is 100% going to be in your interest to get the top of this Rockies lineup, whatever it winds up being. Blackmon for sure. Story has been hot. I can go over the specifics with you, as I also like to do. Because what's the point of doing a deep dive video with you guys, like my long form analysis, if I'm not actually giving you the pertinent information that I have, right? So over the last week or so, Blackmon has an 899 OPS with a 375 WOBA, 261 ISO, good enough, right? Story is heating up now, 250 ISO, 275 WOBA, but he had that nice home run. Dahl is cold. 175 WOBA, 356 OPS, so I'm going to avoid him. Arenado, cold, 606 OPS, 263 WOBA, so I think you can save some money if you're playing a Rocky stack and go elsewhere from Arenado. They're not playing a lefty, so it's not like someone that you have to lock him in against. Tapia, in between Arenado and Dahl, so we can ignore him. Danny Murphy is the worst as of right now. He has a WOBA of 128, with an ISO of 071 and an OPS of 276 over the last week. So we can also avoid Danny Murphy. And I lied when I said that he was the worst. Brendan Rodgers just called up a top prospect for the Rockies. So this isn't necessarily going to be how he performs. He might just be adjusting. A 250 OPS with a 109 WOBA. And then Tony Walters, let's see where he's at. 767 OPS with a 314 WOBA. So the thing to take note of is that Ryan McMahon has a 1.622 OPS with a 656 WOBA. So if he winds up in the lineup, you got to play him with Blackmon and Story. And then Desmond, if he gets in, I know he's a lefty specialist, and this is reflective of him going against lefties, but he has a 1.371 OPS and a 554 WOBA over the last week. So I think that if he plays, you can take a chance on him because he is going to be cheap. I didn't, Edgar. I'm going over this game by game. So as of right now, I'm just gonna keep talking. There's gonna be a few stacks I talk about along the way. So that's one of them. They're not one of the best ones. They're not one of my favorite. Well, I mean, they are one of the best ones because there's not a ton of really great stacks as far as I'm concerned tonight. And Kingham, if he gets the bulk of it, and then a poor Pirates bullpen is going to be great. Even if Durapel has a good first inning and gets Blackmon and Story pretty easily, they should be able to make up for it. And at that point, I would really hope that McMahon and or Desmond is at the bottom of the lineup so I can prioritize them because they're going to get maximum at bats against Kingham, since they're going to get him the first time and probably the second time around. They'll probably need him to run some innings today, again, given that the bullpen isn't very good, and neither are the starters for Pittsburgh. The one thing that does concern me is the 4.2 run total for Colorado. There are significantly better ones today, but I still think that that is not the be all end all, and it's a good indicator of where they might wind up, but it's not the only thing you need to look at. And there's plenty of times that people go over or under. Look at just the Texas Seattle game yesterday that was projected to get 11.5 runs by Vegas. If you went heavy on that, as heavy as I did, you were thoroughly disappointed. So, unless you played Narvaez, who I did like, but was too expensive for catcher. Next game up, Yankees and the Orioles. We have a good stacking opportunity here, obviously, with the Yankees. Dan Straley is terrible. The Orioles pitching staff is a free square. Their bullpen is one of the worst. They give up more home runs than just about anybody. Period. If we look at the last couple weeks, Straley's FIP is 7.13, xFIP 7.40, 1.96 WHIP. He's giving up 2.3 home runs per 9. Those are all significant, and he's not striking anybody out. So against this Yankees team, I would be surprised if they're not able to get to that 6.6 run. I was going to say 6.2 run total, but I'm not sure it's exactly that. I don't know which way to round at this point because I didn't dive into that at this point. But the Yankees are projected to get over 6 runs no matter what. So I think that they are the most likely to do that today out of everybody that I looked at. Straley really is that bad, and even if they chase him, the bullpen is even worse. I can't overstate that. So if we are looking at recent form, as I've talked about, yesterday and the last couple days, Torres is absolutely on fire. You absolutely have to lock him in. Frazier is heating up. He had a couple home runs yesterday that were not jokes. He should be at the bottom of the order. Excuse me. Voit is absolutely on fire. Yeah, I agree, but I don't think that they're going to be able to continue to do that unless they just want to keep walking him and letting Urshela and Frazier hit home runs, because that's what wound up happening yesterday. If I think they walked the first 2 times they walked Torres, Frazier hit a home run and knocked him in, because I was watching that game to see how it all went down. And they're just that bad. Even if they want to pitch around him, that's just extra points that we're going to get, and we can play the guys behind him and around him. That's why I wouldn't play Torres. I would play Torres as a one-off, but I would really like to get as much of the Yankees five today if you can get 5. It really is that stark. So we have Torres, Voit, Gary Sanchez, and Clint Frazier, who are all really, really hot lately. And then you can take your pick on the 5th. I don't mind Hicks. I think Hicks is due. Morales has looked great if he winds up playing. Urshela has been a huge bat. I don't like Brett Gardner, but, it's Baltimore, and he's going to be cheap and over-owned, but he's still going to be cheap for that. And then on the other side, I'm going to be one of the few people that says, I think you should take some Baltimore bats today. I've been saying it for a while. They are one of the worst pitching staffs, period, I've seen in quite some time. But their offense isn't as bad as you would think. They're in the bottom half, sure. They're not lighting the world on fire. They're not going to get, 7-8 runs a game. They're not going to win a lot, but they have some seriously decent bats here, especially against lefties. Hanser Alberto has an OPS over 1.008 with a WOBA of 419, and most of that comes against lefties because that's the only person that he can hit against. You look at his huge, 38-point game, if I remember correctly. Oh, that's the problem. My memory works pretty good. 36-point. He had a 36-point game against J.A. Happ a couple games ago with a double, 4 hits, a home run, 2 RBIs, a stolen base, because it's a lefty, and that's who you're going to have to use Alberto against. He's only 3,600. I think that is a fine play today, and the O's are going to be under-owned given their talent. Hey, Trunks, how you doing? Good of you to join us. Trey Mancini is also doing very well lately. 377 WOBA, 936 OPS, a 367 ISO. He's also someone that absolutely mashes lefties. And Sabathia isn't someone that's been doing well either. 4.9 strikeouts per 9, 4.9 walks per 9 over the last couple weeks, with a 7.18 FIP, which is second worst of everyone going today. period. Any slate, second worst of anyone going today, and a 7.03 xFIP, which again is one of the worst of anyone going today. So I think that the Orioles are being underrated. There are some bats there that are going to be able to take advantage of how bad Sabathia has been pitching at a cheap price and a low ownership. And I think that if you are looking at this slate holistically, which I always try to do when I'm going game by game, I try to, pull back and look at everything. I think that, like a week ago, I talked about this. The pitching at the high end is far too good that we can ignore it. I think that the upside is there for multiple pitchers, that while you can do, a couple punts or go with one stud and one punt, I think that it's going to behoove you to try to get those over 8,000 guys. And if you can, get two of the aces over 10,000. It's going to be a lot harder. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that it's going to be easy pickings. Again, taking the bats today, but Alberto's 3,600, Severino's 3,600. Wilkerson is the lefty masher, 3,900. Ricard is a lefty masher, 3,500. Rio Ruiz, which is a lot harder to say than you would think, is 3,600. And this is one of the interesting ones that I want to point out because I'm, again, one of the few people that I've seen that talks about splits or goes into it as much as I do. Rio Ruiz is an extreme reverse splits hitter, not just he's a slightly better against lefties. He is a lefty that is significantly better against lefties in his career. If we look at it, his slugging percentage as a lefty against lefties is .419, and as a righty against righties, is .316. His OPS is .701 against lefties and .622 against righties. His ISO is .163 against lefties and .107 against righties. And this is a lefty we're talking about here. Rio Ruiz is someone that if you don't look deep into these slates, you are going to assume normal splits and play him if you ever play Orioles against righties. But the sneaky thing to do with Rio Ruiz, because he has such extreme reverse splits, is to use him on days like today, where he's going to go overlooked and under-owned because it's a lefty-on-lefty matchup. And Rio God damn it, that is hard to say. Rio Ruiz is not going to be one of the best plays today. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, he's someone we need to lock in, but I'm saying it's warm enough. The wind's blowing out almost 10 miles an hour. Sabathia is terrible. He's let up the second most home runs per nine on the slate, second worst FIP on the slate, the fourth worst xFIP on the slate, if I saw that correctly. He's going against a few dudes that can hit home runs. And I think that, again, if you want to fit in a couple of those ace pitchers, Mancini is expensive at 51. If you can get him in, that's fine too. Wilkerson, 3,900, and add that to the mini stack. Ricard, 3,500 is a lefty masher. Add that, and then you have a four-person right there. And that's great. You can have four Orioles, all about 3,500, all who should have a decent chance of performing today. And then if you have the money to pay for that one expensive bat, you can get Mancini at dual eligibility and fit him in wherever you can. But again, it's not something for the weak-hearted. This is not something that, I think is a slam dunk, but I am going to give some serious consideration today to trying to go two ace and then four Baltimore bats, because Sabathia really has been that bad and the Orioles really are that underrated. And again, that doesn't mean they're good. I can say like McDonald's is underrated. That doesn't mean it's great. It just means that people don't like it as much as they should, or they think it's more junk than it is, whatever the case may be. You could understand that we're talking relative here, that saying that they're underrated doesn't necessarily mean that they are, one of the best teams. Hey, Grace, how's it going? Thank you, as always, for joining. I really always appreciate that. I think that the Orioles aren't, again, barn burners. They're not going to, be someone that we're going to take on a frequent basis. But Sabathia is that bad, and they are going to be like 2 or 3% owned. And I think that they're going to let you fit in a bunch of bats here that you may not be able to fit in otherwise. So I really wanted to go into that game. I think that that is going to be the most important game today, because I think that that's where a lot of the bats are going to need to come from. If you look over the slate, again, holistically, I know this is only the second game that we're talking about, but if you are spending up on bats, you really need to go Yankees as a priority. And if you are not spending up on bats, I like the Orioles just in terms of where I project them today and what their ownership is going to be. So that being said, let's move on. We have Boston and Toronto for game 3. We got Rick Porcello against Aaron Sanchez, not the chef from Chopped and MasterChef. Aaron Sanchez, the Toronto Blue Jays pitcher. It would be a lot funnier if it was the heavily tattooed MasterChef, but we take what we can get, and what we're getting is an Aaron Sanchez that is decent, but has been pitching far over his head lately. He is like a moderate strikeout pitcher. He's not someone that, I'm going to say we need to avoid because he's only going to get 5 strikeouts per 9, but he's someone I'd put in the, 7 to 9 range for the most part. So over the last couple weeks, having 15 strikeouts per 9 is eye-opening and a little more than we should expect from him. The 4 walks per 9 is what we should expect from him. The 1.78 whip is what we should expect for him. Now, I will say that he has gotten unlucky, and he's gotten more unlucky than anyone on the slate. The BABIP against him, or the batting average on balls in play, which is a function of, if you make contact with the ball, it could go to a player, it could go to the outfield, and it doesn't matter. Sometimes it's luck. Seeing eye singles or bleeding singles are what I'm talking about here. So having a 476 BABIP against is significantly unlucky. And that's backed up by the ERA being 7, the FIP being 4.64, and the XFIP being 2.79. So we can see Sanchez has been pitching significantly better than everything else. But the thing you need to consider is all of that is like a neutralizing effects of the park that he's pitching in or the defense behind him, but he's still pitching in the Blue Jays park, which is a good offensive park with a terrible offense behind him. So I think that while while it's nice to try to consider these things in a vacuum, like Sanchez, if Sanchez were pitching on X or Y team, he would be doing significantly better. That's not the reality of it. The reality of it is we are paying today for Aaron Sanchez to pitch on the Blue Jays in Toronto against the Red Sox, who don't strike out. You can go there if you want, but I don't know why you would. The strikeouts are going to go down. The walks are going to go up. He's going to get chased a lot earlier, and he's going to look a lot more like the 7 ERA pitcher than the 2.79 XFIP pitcher. I would put more money on that than otherwise. Granted, Yankees better than the Red Sox. 100 out of 100 times I would take them. Not that that's going to be the result, but if I'm making, if I'm playing this slate in this position right now, and you ask me 100 days out of 100 days, I'm going to say take the Yankees as the best stack today. Again, who knows where it ends up, but Aaron Sanchez at least has some upside, whereas none of the Orioles do. So we can take some Red Sox here if we're looking at recent form, which again is something that we should always consider. We have assuming Vasquez starts. We have Bogarts, Vasquez, and Pierce isn't going to start, but he's finally heating up lately. We have Bogarts and Vasquez and Moreland with WOBAs over 400. Moreland has extreme normal splits against a righty with extreme normal splits. So that's an additive effect that works nicely for him. Yeah, Jackie Bradley, I was going to mention. I was talking a couple days ago, someone was asking me about Jackie Bradley, about whether we could play him for his price tag. And I said that Jackie Bradley's someone that will get you an occasional home run or, an occasional game where he gets you like a walk or a cheap hit and then a stolen base, and it looks like he's paying off. And then he'll go into, a week-long 0 DKP slump. What we need to look for is days when Jackie Bradley Jr. puts together 2-3 good games in a row, and Jackie Bradley Jr. had home runs in 2 games in a row, and that for Jackie Bradley Jr. Is significant. So while it's not going to be the safest play, we are going to get a grossly underpriced Jackie Bradley Jr., 2,600 on DraftKings that you could put in a stack or even play as a one-off to help you fit in other pieces. And I think that you are just fine doing that. So if you want to play the Red Sox against Sanchez, and they are projected to get more than 5 runs today. So, given again the how much good pitching there is, I think that they're going to be one of the better stacks, although there are, again, a couple that I would much prefer. But you can take, bets whenever. If JD Martinez is back, you can take a chance on him. The questionable tag always lowers ownership, and if he's good enough to go, he's good enough to go. Moreland, like I said, has been hot. And then Chavez and Bradley, I really do like. And then whoever's catching, honestly, all of the catchers, Leon and Vasquez, have OPSs over 400. Leon over the last week is 450 and Vasquez is 442. So again, you can get a cheap catching option there, regardless of who starts, and you'll do okay. In terms of Porcello, Porcello is one of those dudes that on a smaller slate I can understand going to, but the Blue Jays have a little too much upside, and Porcello doesn't strike out enough people. That I just don't think he's going to pay it off. 8,200 is just too much. If he were in the low 7s, then I could absolutely consider going there. But, again, we haven't even touched some of the good pitching options today. And we're going to now, because the next game we're going to talk about is Washington and the New York Mets. And that is the game of the season if everybody's pitching like they should. We got the Mets projected to get 3.3 runs and the Nats projected to get 3.2 runs because we got Jacob deGrom versus Max Scherzer in the best pitcher's park in baseball. If you look at it, and I have to link this article, they did a study from the day that Citi Field opened into this year and showed how it has affected run production, both from the Mets and from opponents. And they found that it's like an opposite Coors Field effect. Like the runs and the production inside Citi Field is that stunted that it really is like a reverse Coors effect. Like you can boost pitchers and downgrade bats whenever they are playing in the Mets stadium. Granted, there are going to be some hot, humid days with winds blowing out or really terrible pitchers. I'm not saying we can avoid them or we need to avoid them, just that, they do get bumps. 100%. Trunks asks, would it be a good idea to take both and forget about the win points on DraftKings? Yes. Wins are underrated are overrated. You get 4 points for the win. The strikeouts that they're going to get more than offsets the win. You're going to have pitchers today that get the win that don't have as many DKP as Scherzer and deGrom will have after they get through 2 innings. And that sounds like an exaggeration, but it really isn't. This Mets team is going to strike out a fuckload against Max Scherzer. They are playing weak and they are playing hurt and they are not playing good. And Edgar asked the very same question, the next one. So yeah, I think, like I said, my strategy today, like it was last week, is going to be to find 2 of the ace pitchers, preferably over 10K, and then getting some of the cheaper bats like the Orioles that we've talked about so far, or Jackie Bradley Jr. specifically that I've talked about so far. So I'm avoiding the bats here. I like Scherzer better than deGrom, given how bad the Mets have been and that the Nationals are heating up offensively. But the Nationals do strike out. Well, it was the most in the Major League Baseball. They have worked their way down to a 9th now, but they are still striking out. There's a gap between 9th and 10th, and then another huge gap between like 20th and 21st. And then the Angels are just far and away the best. But Washington to Detroit, the top 9 are really all grouped together and can go back and forth any given day. So the Nats strike out some of the most, so do the Mets. So both pitchers have tremendous upside today, and they are going to be 2 of the best pitchers that we have. Granted, this is a slate with a lot of good pitching options in it, But I think that, with Cole, sure, but he's 12K. With Cole, Scherzer and DeGrom really are the meat of it. Single game, FanDuel Huff asks, single game, or I know what you meant. Single lineup, FanDuel pitcher, Max Scherzer, yes. Period. I don't think there's anything else to say. Just like if you have to do one stack, it's the Yankees. If you have to do one pitcher, it's Scherzer. He hasn't looked the best lately, but it's the Mets, and they've been playing really, really badly. And he still has that strikeout upside. I don't care if the xFIP is almost 5 or 4.5. I don't care if the WHIP's 1.3. If you've watched the Mets, and I have, believe me, I have, they look completely lost, like puppies. So I'm going to get away from them as much as I can, and get on Scherzer as much as I can. I just think that's the only way that you could do it. That's going to be the smartest way to attack this slate today, if you can, given the glut of good to decent to good pitching, but nothing with the upside that these two guys have against each other. So that makes that game a super easy. Next, we are going to move on to Miami at Detroit. This is one that, like a lot of runs are going to be scored because it's two terrible pitchers. So if you are going to look for some cheap bats, I think that you can do that here. I'm never, ever going to recommend the Marlins, so pass on that. That doesn't mean I'm going to play Daniel Norris. He's absolutely terrible. But Urena is also, him and Cashner battle for the worst number one starter in baseball. And any given day, it could be, Urena. And, the Tigers, again, not great. So I'm not going to prioritize them, but they are cheap enough and have a few cheap enough bats that I want to, at least consider them just far down the line. That's like if you're MMEing. I just want to point this out because this is hugely significant. WOBA is one of the better metrics, I think, in terms of looking at recent form. If you're looking at the last 7 days, OPS and WOBA do a lot of, good. ISO as well. I look at everything. Let's be fair. But I think that if you're just going to sum it down into the one statistic, WOBA is good enough. So if you're over 400, that's really, really good. Miguel Cabrera and Jacoby Jones, their WOBAs over the last week, 456 and 405. 456 for Miggy, 405 for Jacoby Jones. That's fantastic. Jacoby Jones is going to be super, super cheap. 3,100, not bad at all. But every other batter on the Tigers I would list as cold. Castellanos, WOBA, 228. Dawel Lugo, 225. Josh Harrison, 183. Gordon Beckham, 175. Goodrum, 152. Grainer, 120. Ronnie Rodriguez, 116. Kristen Stewart, 102. Brandon Dixon, 098. And then if they play John Hicks, 0. So this is a terrible team, struggling really, really badly. So I am pretty much just going to avoid the hell out of this game. If you want to take a chance, like I said, if you want to take a chance that the Tigers are going to get right against this Marlins team, I can understand it, but I'm not going to go there unless I decide to play, a fuckload of lineups. Next up is, did I skip over the Dodgers and the Rays? I did. I skipped over the Dodgers and the Rays somehow. So let's look at Dodgers and the Rays. I'm going to go back to there before getting to the 8 o'clock games. Rich Hill, no thank you. I'd like someone that's going to throw, or more than 100 pitches any given start, especially if they're over 10K. I understand he has the upside. He got 36 DKP against Cincinnati with 10 strikeouts in his last game. But again, like I said, he got 84 pitches. Like, he's had one start so far where they let him get over 85 pitches and he got to 95 pitches. Rich Hill is far too expensive for someone that is at most going to get you like 6 innings. And this is a Tampa Bay team that is very good against lefties, even if Yandy Diaz sits again, that can really hit lefties. He's in a good pitcher's park, but he does have to face a DH instead of a pitcher. So that is another bump to the Rays and another downgrade to Rich Hill. So I don't think there's any reason, apart from trying to do MME differentiation, why you would take Rich Hill at 10-2 instead of DeGrom at 10-5, given everything, considering the strikeouts that the Nats put up versus the Rays, just everything points to DeGrom over Rich Hill. Excuse me. I do apologize. On the Rays, is it Beeks that's going? No, Chirinos. So that's a decent place to take Dodgers bats. The one thing that I will say is that the Dodgers are really expensive, and they're only projected to get 5.3. And I said this yesterday. It doesn't matter how good you are, right? The way the Rays work the opener / bullpen games is incredible. Their advanced metrics and their ability to know the weaknesses of hitters and what pitchers they have that can exploit that really is something to watch. It really is, an overused term, 3D chess. They know what's coming up, and they know what pitchers they can use to get past that situation, and they do it. So we see them shut down amazing offenses, and for that reason, the Dodgers are barely going to get over 4 runs. They're expensive as any other team, and I just don't think you can go there. If you want to take a one-off at one of the cheaper dudes, like a Beatty at 3,200 at first base, that's kind of wasting first base. You know what I mean? You have so many better options, but I can understand fitting in what you can fit in. But I'd rather spend up on Voit if you're playing the Yankees, or we'll get to other options later on. So again, I'm not going to take the Rays pitchers. I don't, they have the opener going, and then Chirinos. I am playing NBA showdowns, and if you want, I can go into that in a little bit, DJA dog. I have no problem going into that in a little bit, but I'm going to finish up baseball first. You just want like a theory of how I play it, as opposed to like specifics, because there's nothing tonight, right? So let's move on to the next game, which is Phillies and the Cubs. I've talked in the past multiple times that Wrigley Field is one of the parks. They've tried to fix it with advertising, but which is funny. But they are one of the parks that is most affected by wind. So when you have a 13-mile-an-hour wind blowing out to left field, you have a huge boost to right-hand bats. When both pitchers are lefties, you have a big boost to right-hand bats. So what we have here is a game that I would love to be all over. If you are spending up, I would put the Cubs right behind the Yankees as my number 2 on this slate. If you are trying to go cheap, I would put the Phillies. So it's hard to say this. I would put the Phillies right behind the Orioles, but that's only because the Orioles are like $400 or $500 cheaper per person. If we're ignoring price, then the Phillies you can get for about $4,000 a person is going to be one of the best, if not the best, cheap stack today. If we again look at recent form, Cole Hamels with the FIP of 533, xFIP of 488, 1.5 home runs per 9 isn't bad, but he's walking a ton of people, and this is a Phillies team that should be able to take advantage of the wind blowing out to left field, and Cole Hamels giving up some home runs. Yeah, they do, and I think that if you're differentiating in GPPs, the Cubs are going to be a great way to go, because I think the ownership is justifiably going to be all over the Yankees today. I think the Cubs, with that wind and with the heat and with Irvin being a rookie like he is, I think a non-strikeout pitcher who doesn't give up a lot of home runs. He keeps the ball on the ground, but give me the Cubs today as well, like I said. So I think that what I want to look at right now, as I always want to look at, is recent form for y'all, because I think that that's a great way of doing some kind of differentiation. So first, we're going to look at the Cubs because I like them better. Assuming Almora leads off, which I do assume, 4,300 is a discount for him. His OPS over the last week is 1.212 with a WOBA of 503, an ISO of 333, which is tied for the highest on this entire Cubs staff. On this entire Cubs team, excuse me. Batting average 417. It's been a good week for Almora. He is a righty that mashes lefties, and he gets a lefty that is gonna have a hard time coming into Wrigley Field on a warm day with the wind blowing out. When that benefits the righties that are going to be better against him anyway. Then you have Contreras, OPS 1.077 with a WOBA of 455. So you got to think you want to lock him in. Chris Bryant, 1.016, ISO 333, WOBA 422. So yeah, this is, if you can get Almora Bryant, especially in the 1 and the 2, I think that you need to do that. If you are spending up, there is a good, it is just a good thing to get the Cubs today if you can. Like I said, the Yankees against the Baltimore Orioles, with the way the Orioles are, is still number 1. But I think that the Cubs are going to be a sneakier way to go in GPPs, 100%. And they have, excuse me, I really hope you didn't hear that. They have some really hot batters too, and they are the only other team projected to get 6 runs besides the Yankees. So again, if you're spending up, those are 2 of the best teams to spend up on. I also want to look at who's hot for the Phillies, and then I'm going to talk about the Tigers lineup that just popped, because that actually makes it worse. Don't play CC Sabathia, DJ Dog. Don't play CC Sabathia. He is awful. He is the second worst pitcher on the slate, given recent form, worse than Straley. He's given up more home runs than anybody on the slate. His FIP is like almost 8 over the last couple weeks. He has looked absolutely terrible, no strikeout upside, and there are a few Orioles bats that are really, really hot, like Hanser Alberto and Trey Mancini. So I would much rather take them, Wilkerson, take cheap Orioles bats and get a cheaper pitcher with more upside than CC Sabathia. I don't think there's any reason to take him today. Literally no reason. There's way too many good pitching options. So now let's look at the Phillies bats, because again, this matters. We have underpriced Phillies: McCutchen 4,000, Segura 4,500, Harper 4,200, Rhys Hoskins 4,100, Cesar Hernandez 4,000. They have Kingery and Sean Rodriguez, who are both lefty mashers. If either, I assume one of them is going to play, probably Kingery, and they're both going to be too cheap regardless. Segura over the last week, 1.1 OPS with a WOBA of 459. McCutchen 892 OPS, but his WOBA is 391, which isn't bad. Cesar Hernandez, his OPS is 898 with a WOBA of 380. Bryce Harper's starting to heat up with a WOBA of 360 and an ISO of 321. Real Muto, an ISO of 318 with a WOBA of 356. Again, these aren't like world breaker numbers. I told you WOBA over 400. I want the OPS over 1,000. But these are dudes that have been hitting well. And Cole Hamels, like I said, isn't as good as people think. He is prone to giving up home runs, and this is a great game environment for cheaper Phillies than they should be. They are a great offense, and they are still projected to score almost 5 runs, 4.6 give or take runs today. So give me cheap Phillies as well if you're looking to spend up, although it's going to be harder to do Phillies than other cheap teams. Next up is the White Sox and the Houston Astros. This is another one where if you are spending up, this is going to be my 3rd favorite team to target, the Astros against Ivan Nova, or Ivan Nova, depending on how you like to pronounce it. He has been the worst pitcher over the last couple weeks, and it really hasn't been close. As bad as Sabathia and Straley have been over the last couple weeks, it's kind of ridiculous. Ivan Nova, 4 strikeouts per 9. So even if you liked him, he's not striking anybody out. He's walked 7 per 9 for a whip of 2.22. That's insanely terrible. An ERA of 9, and that is him being lucky because his FIP is 10.31. His FIP is 3.13 higher than the next closest person. Just to give you something here, over the last couple weeks, Garrett Cole's FIP is 1.08. Frankie Montas, 1.18. Luis Castillo, 1.67. Jesse Chavez, who's opening, 2.04. Rich Hill, 2.36. Jacob deGrom, 2.58. Max Fried, 2.90. Merrill Kelly, 2.92. So you can take any of those pitchers and add them and add their FIP onto Dan Straley, and you are still not as bad as Ivan Nova has been over the last couple of weeks. So, granted, still don't like the Astros as much as I like the Yankees bats or as I like the Cubs bats, but they are absolutely fantastic, especially if Springer is back in the lineup. I don't know if that injury is going to hamper him, and the 5,900 price tag is kind of crazy, but his ownership is going to be muted because of the questionable tag and people not wanting to take a chance here. So, you can get some cheaper Astros than you should. The top of that order is always going to be really, really expensive. Springer, Bregman, Correa, Brantley, especially, are all going to be really, really expensive no matter what. But you can't ignore Reddick having a 1.125 OPS over the last week with a 446 WOBA, Aledmus Diaz, a 984 OPS with a 445 WOBA. These are cheaper guys. Reddick is only 4,400. Diaz is only 4,500. So again, they're not like super cheap, but relatively speaking, if you're spending up, they are cheaper options that you could fit in for like a mini Astro stack if you are prioritizing the Yankees or the Cubs like I think you should. So on the other side is Garrett Cole, who I love. I picked him to win the Cy Young in the American League. The most chalk stack, DJ Dog asked, what do you think the most chalk stack is going to be? The Yankees. I don't think it's even going to be close. I think it's going to be the Yankees by far, for good reason, though. That's why if you're doing GPPs, I don't mind pivoting to the Cubs with similar price points, but I still don't think the Cubs are going to do as good as the Yankees do. I think the Yankees are the best chance for a team to get 10 plus runs today, whereas I think the Cubs will probably get 8 or 9 when all is said and done. If we're talking about what I think is going to go down in the game. So Astros will also probably get like 7 or 8 runs. So I put them, like I said, right up there, but in third place, especially if Springer plays. I would put them up there. If not, then they get slightly muted, but that doesn't stop the love I have for both Reddick and Aledmus Diaz today. So I would want to play them as one-offs or whatever. Next up is Minnesota at the Angels. This is Martin Perez against Matt Harvey. So yesterday I said that the Twins were one of my favorite stacks. They were under projected. They were going to go under owned. They were going to do a lot better than people thought because they're a fantastic team going against a pitcher that they were going to be able to exploit. And all of that is true again today, if not more so. Because today they're going against Matt Harvey, who I could get a hit against, and I probably wouldn't be able to leave this chair. So that's saying a lot. I'm going to give you a breakdown right now of what % Matt Harvey throws every pitch, because as I explained yesterday, the Twins are one of the best fastball hitting teams in baseball. They are number 2 right now, I believe, behind the Astros. And we have Matt Harvey, who throws a 4-seamer 60% of the time. Twins, love the Twins today. The Twins are a middle-priced team. They have some really cheap options, and I want all of them. Kepler, 4,100, too cheap. Marwin Gonzalez, 3,700, too cheap. Sano, 4,100, too cheap. Even the expensive guys, the Byron Buxton, who has been on fire lately, 4,500, is not going to be owned at all because he's batting 9th. But look at his production over the last couple of weeks. I'm going to actually give you the numbers on DraftKings as opposed to the other numbers because it is fantastic. The dude has been on fire. He has a 17, a 16, a 23, and a 29 fantasy point game over the last 10 days. That is better than most people in the game. Most people are not going to get you one almost 30 DKP performance, and he's gotten you a couple in the last week and a half. That is really, really good. I think that the Twins, because people rely too heavily on the Vegas totals, are going to go under-owned just as they went under-owned yesterday, and they have just as good a chance of putting up some significant numbers. I just want to go over this with you again. If we are talking about a WOBA over 375, which I like 400, but I think 375 is more than fair enough to say that you are having a really, really good week, right? These are the following Twins who have a WOBA over 375 over the last week. Jason Castro, 386. Max Kepler, 410. Jorge Polanco, 412. Marwin Gonzalez, 453. Ahiri Adrianza, 476. CJ Cron, 487. Luis Arez, 641. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people. 7 people. If you don't think the Twins are one of the best stacks today, you are fooling yourself. I would take the Twins over the Astros. I would take the Twins over the Cubs. What I don't know is today, and that is I wanted to spend extra time there because, again, if you are looking at strength versus a specific pitch and you are looking at what Matt Harvey does, the Twins versus Matt Harvey is about as good a matchup as it gets. On top of that, almost all of the bats are hot. They are under projected, so they're going to go under owned. They are underpriced. It just lines up for getting as many Twin bats as you can. You could probably get a Twins mini stack with a few of these cheaper guys in the 4,000 range, then get a major stack with one of the cheaper options like the Orioles that I talked about before, and still get a couple of the ace pitchers because they are just that cheap. I think that the Twins are the one, like the middle line between like those expensive bats that you want to spend up on and those cheaper bats that you want to take a chance on because they are, they're in a good spot and you want to get those expensive pitchers. I think that you can get cheap bats that are going to go off tonight for the Twins. I would have them as the second best chance of any team today to get double digits in runs. I would take, again, any of those dudes. And I'm ignoring, Buxton with a 326 WOBA, Rosario with a 325 WOBA, Sano with a 310 WOBA, Scope with a 306 WOBA. Like, everybody on this team is hitting. Take any of them. Marwin Gonzalez for 3,700 is an absolute joke. I am not going to play Astudillo because he has looked terrible if he is in the lineup. But I would assume Castro is going to be catching instead of him. But either way, if Astudillo's playing, give me 8 of the 9 bats. If he's not, give me Marwin Gonzalez as the top option here for the 3,700 price tag and the dual position eligibility. And then give me whoever the hell else I can fit in. Kepler at 4,100 as well is just ludicrous. Sano at 4,100 is ludicrous. All these dudes are going to destroy Harvey today. And then if we're looking at the pitchers on the other side, Martin Perez had some glimmers at the beginning of the year. I think that he's an okay option, but I don't think that he's an okay option at 8,700, if you understand what I'm saying. Like if you're looking over everything before you look at pricing, Sano home run pick, I would say I like Sano to hit a home run today. I would say Marwin Gonzalez and Kepler are better home run picks, given the fact that while Harvey is terrible overall, Harvey's splits against lefties over the last couple of years are, they make Julio Teheran look like a Cy Young Award winner. So give me any and all lefties specifically against Harvey, which is why, again, Kepler and Gonzalez are far too underpriced. But Sano at 4,100 is someone that you need to consider because he's someone that can hit you 2 home runs today against Harvey as a righty, and he's at the bottom of the order. So, yeah, give me any and all Twins. If you can get multiple in, you're going to be able to spread the love around, spread the points around, get as many additive runs as you can. So I'm going to go on to Martin Perez here because like I was saying, if you just look at the stats, right? Martin Perez looks like someone that you could consider today. He looks like someone who would be a decent option. And then you see the 8,700 price tag and you go, Jesus Christ, why would I just not take one bat and put it as a punt and then go up to like a DeGrom or a Scherzer. I can do that much more easily and have a higher upside and a higher floor in a better matchup. So yeah, if you want to take Martin Perez, wait until he's back under 8,000 because he just doesn't have that upside that I would want from an 8,700 price pitcher. I want to go back now really quickly. If you want to go back with me to look at the Tigers, because the Tigers lineup came out. And if you remember, I said that the only two Tigers that were hot were Miggy Cabrera and Jacoby Jones. They're 4th and 9th, and that everybody else was terrible, like under 100. Beckham, Goodrum, Castellanos, Ronnie Rodriguez, Kristen Stewart, Josh Harrison, and John Hicks fill out that lineup. Grainer had if I remember correctly, Grainer had a WOBA of like 120, and Hicks was 0. So they actually downgrade their bats today with that lineup. And Beckham leading off has also been awful. So again, this isn't a place I'm saying like, oh boy, now we need to play Jose Urena, because that would be stupid. But just avoid everything here. It's not like they put in some sneaky dudes that have some upside that we are ignoring. They just made it worse for themselves. So again, that's everything. I'm not going to be all in on the Angels bats against Perez. I'm just not going to really play Perez. Trout's always a one-off, but if you go into what I've talked about, Trout is better against righties than against lefties. So it's not as much of a lock as you would think. Not that Trout isn't a lock every day, but you understand what I'm saying. Like Trout against a reverse splits righty is a lock. I want to do that every single time it happens. Next up, and the last game, is the Braves and the Giants. We got Max Fried here and Jeff Samardzija. This is one of the tougher ones because Max Fried has showed some real nice flashes. Over the last couple weeks, 9.82 strikeouts per 9, 2.5 walks per 9 for a 1.27 whip. Meh. But his ERA is 2.45, and that's backed up by a FIP of 2.9 and an xFIP of 2.57. So we have a Max Fried that's looked really, really good lately. I would have expected him to be in the 9K price range. So if there's anybody that you're considering taking in the middle, the over 8K price range, Max Fried is going to be the one for me. So like I said, while I would try to prioritize getting, DeGrom and Scherzer, or if you can, Cole at 12,000, though I think that's going to be much, much more difficult of a task today, unless you're punting a couple of positions, like a $2,200 catcher or something like that. But I think that if you are going to take one of the, like a DeGrom or Scherzer, preferably Scherzer, and then you want to get one of the dudes over 8,000, I think that Max Fried is going to be the one. Now, I've talked a lot about how the Giants are one of the worst offenses, but they don't strike out as much as you would think. They strike out 8.94 per 9, which is less than the average. Detroit's at 9.9. The Angels are at 6.15, but the next is Houston at 7.06, and then the Twins at 7.5. So it jumps up precipitously until we get to the mid 8s, and then there's a big bunch of people from like 8.5 to 9, and then a big bunch of people from like 9.2 to 10, specifically 9.5 to 10. So San Francisco Giants, I'd put in like the 3rd or 4th tier, but not by far the worst tier of teams that strike out a lot. So I would expect Fried to have a normal amount of strikeouts. It's not boosted by any means, but the amount of home runs he's going to give up is going to be lessened. And he already gives up less than 1 home run per 9. The amount of base runners is going to be lessened. And I just think that he's in line for a good game. I don't think he has the upside or the floor of a DeGrom or a Scherzer in these matchups. But then again, DeGrom minus points against the Marlins. Who would have thought that was his floor against the Marlins? But I think that if you are looking in the under 10K range and the over 8K range, which is another tier I like to consider strongly, I think that Fried's the dude, and I don't think it's really close. Samardzija has looked terrible lately, 4.8 strikeouts per 9 with a 5.8 walks per 9. So that's not good. 1.7 whip, that's not good. And when a 5.8 ERA is backed up is worsened by a 6.73 FIP and a 7.15 XFIP. We have Samardzija, who is the 1, 2, 3, fourth worst pitcher on the day, unless you include Hernan Perez, who got an inning for the Brewers one time and did terribly. But I don't consider him because he's not a pitcher. So Samardzija is the fourth worst pitcher going today, meaning that I do like the Braves bats, but the issue with the Braves is the pricing. The people that I like on the Braves are the really expensive dudes. I can understand, much like with the Twins, if you want to get like the middle priced guys, but I would much rather have the Twins than the Braves. So what I would say is, if you're doing multiple lineups and you're spreading it around, which if you do multiple lineups, you should be doing, that's exactly the point. Scherzer's not going to get the run support either. Cozart at 2,100 is a fantastic punt. Anyone that's under 2,300 that you can play that's not a catcher, if you can get them in the lineup as a one-off, do it, because even if they get you 5, 6, 7 DKP, that's a pretty damn good value on the 2,100, and that's going to let you get a lot of those bigger bats and the better pitchers that are going to have much higher upside. So yeah, if Cozart plays and he's 2,100, well, Cozart is 2,100, but if he plays, and I think he should, it's his day to play, absolutely love him. Yeah, he's better against lefties. Again, I'm not so big on Angels bats today, but 2,100 is 2,100, and you cannot ignore it, no matter what. I don't care how cold Cozart is. He's still the dude that got 4 home runs in a game. Yeah, DJ, neither of the teams in the Mets Nationals game is going to get run support, but it doesn't matter. Wins are overrated. Don't count on the win. Count on the strikeouts. Count on how good the pitcher is. And both of these dudes are going against 2 of the highest strikeout teams in the game. They have phenomenal upside, and they're in decent enough form that, again, Scherzer and then DeGrom are going to be 2 of the best options today. So like I was saying, the higher priced Braves are priced like the Yankees and the Cubs and the Astros. And I don't want to play the higher priced Braves against those guys. And the moderately priced Braves are the same price as the Twins. And I would never play the Braves against Samardzija when I could get the Twins against Matt Harvey. What I'm going to do, DJ, and this is what I'm going to say as a summary. Okay. Sorry, I thought I got a question there. What I want to do today is I want to get 2 of the expensive pitchers in summary. So Max and DeGrom, especially, and then I want to get the cheap bats. So for me, I think that if you can get as many Twins as you can, and then get some Orioles, and then get some Phillies, you should be able to fill in, especially if you get Cozart at 2,100, fill in everything that you need to do. So that is going to be my strategy for today. So if you are breaking it down, my favorite pitchers on the day, again, considering price, are going to be Scherzer, then DeGrom, then where is he? Scherzer, then DeGrom, then Max Fried, then Garrett Cole. I don't really want to stray that far away from those dudes. There's just the other people pitching today are not good enough with not that great upside. So give me those dudes running away as the 4 pitchers that I'm going to try to fit in. If you are going to punt anybody, give me 1 second here. If you are going to punt any pitcher at all tonight, let us look at the best one for you to do. Okay, I'm going to check one more thing. All right, so it's between 2, and they're both in the same game because both of those dudes are fucking terrible teams. So let's see. I want to look really quickly. Yeah, that's terrible. And that's decent. If you're going super cheap, Norris. But that's against the Marlins with the wind blowing in at 7 miles an hour. This is a terrible Marlins team. I'll take going against them anytime. The DH isn't really going to help them that much. I can tell you what Roto Grinders projects the ownership as. Where is it? It's not there. I guess I got to open the whole thing up. Right now, Roto Grinders has, oh, that's hitters. Garrett Cole at 20%, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the fifth highest owned pitcher. Huh. They have Jose Urena at 28% owned as the second highest owned pitcher. I know that the Tigers are bad and that that's what I have been talking about, DJ. I think that punting pitchers, especially on a day like today, is a fool's errand, and it's going to cost you more money in the long run than it would to take the solid pitchers and then take some of those bats that are cheap and in good spots. So, like I said, today I'm focusing on those four pitchers. Because of that, my favorite stack is going to be the Twins, and then the Orioles, and then the Phillies. Because I think that we're going to need to find value if we're looking to spend up, and you are punting a pitcher, which again, that's in GPPs. Take a chance, do what you got to do. You got to differentiate yourself. Don't yuck it, Trunks. You'll see the bat. Yeah, but the bats aren't going to come through against decent pitching when they're going to come through. CC Sabathia's awful. People underrate the Orioles bats and Cole Hamels with the against Cole Hamels with the wind blowing out, and then the Twins, if you can get Twins against Matt Harvey. I want all of them. So yeah, I think that's the way I'm going to go today. Yankees, if I'm spending up, then the Cubs, then the Astros. I would want the bats from there if I can afford them. Any of the cheaper guys, I would really like. Frazier is only 4,300 on the Yankees. Kendrys Morales is 3,500 if he winds up playing. That is fantastic if you can get both of those guys in there. On the Cubs, everybody's expensive, except Almora at 4,300, who I really, really love today. At 4,300 is a nice bargain. And then I talked about on the Astros, Reddick at 4,400 and Aledmus Diaz at 4,500 are fantastic values today. Again, a little more expensive, but yeah. So if DJ said, look at the three best pitchers, the two best to play, and the worst one to stack against. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, that's a lot of the way I do it, but I like to look at a lot of factors when I break it down. Oh, yeah. It's Urena, 28% projected. I don't know why you would do that to yourself. Like, the dude is not good. We could look at his game logs. Let's see. On the season, Urena, minus 1.5, 2.2, 4.7, 23.6 against a Phillies team that was cold that time, 15.5 because he got a win, 15.6 against the Phillies. Then he got a 6.1, a 15, and a 10.7. So, maybe he'll get to 10. Maybe. The Tigers aren't good, but he's terrible. And it's not worth it, especially if the ownership is going to be 28%. That's astoundingly high for someone that is awful. And I would honestly, when you see something like that, one of the first things that you should say is, I need to play a few Tigers bats, because I want to not just go against. I don't want to just not go where the 20% of people are going. I want to effectively work against them, and that 28% is a lot of people that you're going to get the one up on if these Tigers score some runs, because they're not going to play those Tigers bats against Urena. That is insane. 28%. All right. So that is it for baseball. And then I had a question about constructing my showdown lineups from DJA Dog before. So I think that this differs. It depends on what you want to do. So there's three schools, honestly. I think there's three ways of approaching it. I think that the first thing you need to do is reduce your player pool to 7 or 8 dudes that you want to play, right? What you don't want is to go into, if you're building one lineup, pardon me. If you're building a lot of lineups, then, put in your projections and let the thing do its thing and go nuts, right? Before I do this, I want to ask one thing from everybody, because I'm almost at 100 people who've subscribed, And as you guys have seen, I don't ask for likes or subscribes. I'm not that kind of person. I don't do it for that. I don't really care about that. But if I get to 100 subscriptions, then I can get like a bathrobe URL at YouTube. And I definitely want to get that so I don't have to link like HQ capital A 47, whatever the fuck it is right now. So if I could get, what is it, 24 or so more follows, I would be really grateful. So if you see this, throw me one of those. I'm not going to ask again after I get to 100 because that's just not what I do. But I would really like to get my personalized URL from the YouTubes. So that would be great. So let's go to back to the showdown, because I think that there's 3 ways of attacking showdowns, right? Like I said, if you're doing multiple lineups, go nuts. The best thing you could do is have a program like Fantasy Cruncher, where you plug in what what your projections are, and then if you have any ownership specifications, and then run it, right? If you're playing one lineup, which is how I like to construct them, what I do is I like to break it down to, like I said, 7 or 8 people. You're only going to play 6. So the last thing that I want is to sit there and try to figure out 1,000 different combinations, right? I like to figure out a core of the people that I want to build the lineup around, and then try to figure out ways to get the best lineup I can out of those 7 or 8 people. So I will generally look at, the really high people. Generally there's 2, 3 really expensive people in any game. And then there's like a middle tier, and then there's the punts, right? So right now, let's look at the one, because we have the pricing and everything out for the Toronto versus Milwaukee captain-based showdown for tomorrow night. So I can look at those and tell you, Trunks, to go back to you, I agree with you 100%. Paying up for pitching, stacking some twins, and punting with Jackie and Cozart, beautiful. I am almost certainly going to wind up doing the same thing as you are, because there's a reason that I talked about it. That's what I think the best strategy is going to be to build the one around today. So that's what I'm going to do. So to go back to this, if we look at it, I would say that the tiers, so I'm going to go to the util because I'm not going to look at the captain. Yeah, damn right, Trunks. So right now there are 2 elite people in the tiers, Giannis and Kawhi. I want to play both of them. I know Kawhi looked tired in the last game after playing the 50 plus minutes. I know he probably needs more than 1 day off, but you cannot underrate him. It's 2-2. And if they can win in Milwaukee, they have a chance of winning this series and then losing to Golden State. So, I think that, they're going to be going as hard today as they've gone the last couple days, including Kawhi. I don't think that that's going to let it stop him. So I like Giannis. I like Kawhi. So that's 2 people that I already want. I think that Middleton going off last game is more a function of Kawhi being tired than a function of him, finally figuring out what to do. If you look at the first 3 games, 32, 15, and 25 DKP, I think that 50 and that 25 is an extra overtime. He only had 5. He didn't even foul out. He had 5 fouls. 50 DKP in 36 minutes, I think, is more production than we should reasonably expect. So that 9,400 price tag is more than I would want. So I think, Kawhi Leonard is generally the captain that I've been playing on almost all of these. I think that Lowry going off was again a function of Kawhi being tired, and he was forced to carry more of the load. So again, if we're looking in the middle, I'm eliminating Middleton. I'm eliminating Lowry. I think that Siakam also looked really bad in the last game. I know a lot of that had to do with foul trouble. He got 5 fouls in 23 minutes. But this is exactly what I said when I looked at my last showdown, right? Siakam, everyone was blown away by the almost 50 DKP he got in the 2 overtime game, but that was in 51 minutes. he's still got less than 1 fantasy point per minute. So we can expect him to get 35 or so minutes and then get 31 or 32 DKP at that rate. Now he got 23 minutes and 20 DKP, which is exactly the ratio that I was talking to you about. If he gets into foul trouble, if he doesn't run out there for 35 to 40 minutes, he's probably not going to pay off that 8,000 price tag, especially if Kawhi is back and looking like he normally would. So that would eliminate Siakam from there. Brogdon did not look good. Brogdon got the 37 minutes in the 2 overtime, but he was back to under 30. So again, 7,000, not a terrible play, but not someone that I'm going to prioritize. So as of right now, the only 2 people that I'm prioritizing are Giannis and Leonard. And what that tells me is that I want to use one of them as the captain because there is enough of the players down the slate that I'm going to be interested in for their upside, since I'm not really interested in a lot of the middle priced players. If I was interested in the middle priced players, then I would consider using one of them or even a cheap player in the captain slot, but the cheap player pays off significantly less than the middle tier player. And the higher price captain will pay off slightly more than the middle tier captain, give or take. But that's close enough that you can do the middle tier captain if you think that it's going to work out. But what we need from a cheaper captain is like a Mirotic to go off at 4,800, or like a Cantor being priced 4,400 the other day when you saw the other captain showdown. So what I'm going to look at here, I'm going to look at Giannis and Kawhi. Then I like Gasol. I like Mirotic. Even though he hasn't looked good. I love Powell and I love Hill. So I am 100% going to play Giannis. I am 100% going to play Leonard. I am 100% going to play Powell, and I am 100% going to play George Hill. So if we lock in Leonard as the captain, which is what I would do given what I talked about, we put in Giannis as well. Then we get George Hill and Powell in there. That gives us an average of 6,600 per person. For me, I'm not a huge fan of that because I like Gasol at 6,600, and that would leave me at 6,700. And the next person down is Brook Lopez at 6,700. So what I would do there is I would put Giannis in the captain, put Kawhi, and that only saves 100. Jeez, that's not even that good. So now this gets trickier because I just don't love what that leaves me with, because I want to play those 5 guys. I want to play Giannis, Kawhi, Hill, Powell, and Gasol. They figured out how to use Gasol against this team, and it's going to work for them, and he's going to keep getting the shots. He's going to keep doing what he's been doing. And I think that is something that cannot be ignored. So let's take a look at putting Gasol in that middle price spot and see what that does. If we put Gasol in the captain with Giannis, Kawhi, Powell, and Hill, that leaves us with 9,100 and 1 spot left, and we could get Lowry in there for 8,800 and take a chance that he's still going to put up those 40 points. He got 46 in game 1, 41 in game 2, and then 26 and 26, which is not terrible. I don't want it, but I think that if you are looking at it like that, that's how you got to look at it, right? If Kawhi is your captain, then you have to pick the cheaper people that you want to focus on, right? So let's build it for you, DJ. We got Kawhi as the captain, right? We got Giannis in there because we want to get Giannis in there. Let's say we get Powell and Hill. That leaves us 6,600. Let's say you take a chance on Mirotic. That gives us 8,500, and then you can go with Siakam at 8,000. If you want to go up, you can go to Ibaka and Siakam, which most people aren't going to do because they would generally have a negative correlation. But that only has 100 left over in salary, and then you could take a chance that both of them are going to have decent games. Granted, I don't think that's what's happening. I think that we've seen Toronto try to play small a little more, which is why you're seeing a little more Ibaka than Siakam. We're seeing Gasol get slightly more run. It's just the way they've been putting their lineups out there to combat like Lopez and the perimeter that Milwaukee plays is I'd rather have Gasol. So if you're playing Leonard, let's say you're getting Leonard again. Let's put Leonard back in the captain. I'm going to give you one more option here. We got Leonard and Giannis. Let's say you put Gasol in there. You got 4,900 left. You can do Powell. Oh, excuse me. I have 3 spots left after that. So let's say you get Powell in there. You have 5,100 left. You can go Mirotic Ibaka without any problem, right? That's not a big deal at all. You can take a chance on Ilyasova at 2,000, and then you still have enough money for Siakam at 8,300. There are ways around it. I wouldn't mind if you're going like super cheap, taking the chance on Ilyasova. So if you go Ilyasova and Hill, you have 9,100, and then you have a chance for Lowry. So I think what it's going to go down to for you, DJ, is if you're playing Kawhi, who are the low-priced guys that you like the best? And then, if you can get Gasol in there, great. And then which of the high-priced guys do you mind fitting in there to counteract the cheaper guys that you're going to fit? So again, my pool is going to be, and I'll fill this for you too, Antetokounmpo. So Giannis, Kawhi, Gasol, Powell, Hill are my favorites. Don't mind Ilyasova. Don't mind Mirotic. I do like Gasol, like I said. And then I wouldn't mind taking a chance on one of the higher priced guys, like the Middleton, Lowry, Siakam, if the price gets you there. But I'm not super comfortable with any of them, and I don't necessarily think that any of them are due to have a fantastic game here. So that's it. If anybody has any other questions, you know what? Tampa Bay posted their lineup. So before I go, let's look at that last thing, because it is a different lineup than we would have expected. Alvacel Garcia is leading off, 4,200, not a bad play. Tommy Pham, 3,800. Ji-Man Choi, lefty, bad against lefties, batting third. Willie Dames is batting fourth. He's cleaning up at 3,300. Daniel Robertson is batting fifth at 3,000. Kiermaier, 3,500, batting sixth. You can't play him against a lefty. You have Guillermo Heredia, who I've talked about as a lefty guy, against lefties, I should say. He's batting eighth, and he's 2,700. So I think that while I'm not a big fan of targeting people against Rich Hill, this is a very interestingly constructed Rays lineup that gives you some very interesting choices at very cheap, especially a Dames at shortstop cleaning up at 33, Robertson second and third base eligibility at 3,000. That is not bad at all. This really does give you some options, some extra options there. So I'm glad that I talked more about Showdown so that I could get this lineup news in there. So yeah, it changes a lot. That is a Dames batting cleanup at 3,300, Robertson batting fifth at 3,000. That is nuts. All right, so thank you very much, everybody. Have a beautiful day. Best of luck. Like I said, if you can get me to 100 follows or whatever the hell it's called on YouTube, I'd be grateful, because then I can get that URL that I want. Other than that, have a beautiful day and best of luck. And I will see y'all give or take tomorrow. You too, Trunks. Be well. Thank you so much.